And more than insurance companies, I think even the judges should take this into consideration, fast track these cases on priority basis. They should compensate the families when it is time, when it is right time, when the children are small. Getting the compensation 10, 15 years later has no, I mean, that time has wasted.
The critical period has passed.
The children, you never know, they have gone through insecurity, that psychological stress. It has long-term impacts on children.
You're watching Not Just Auntie with Suman Adepalli.
Our guest today is Dr. Dhanashree Deshmukh, amongst the finest pediatricians in central Mumbai. She completed her medical education at the Lokmanya Tilak Municipal General Hospital and Medical College and then gained experience at many prestigious hospitals in Mumbai before starting her own practice. Life was going on pretty well. She was married to Rajesh, chief engineer in the Merchant Navy, and had 2 children, a son Harsh followed by daughter Ishita. However, even before her daughter turned 2, her husband lost his life in a horrific accident on the way to Cuttack when he was on an official tour. Ironically, just a few months prior to the accident, he had taken to an offshore job so that he could spend more time with his family. Straddled with 2 loans, that of a home and of a clinic, Dhanashree, who initially went into deep shock, had to resume work as soon as she could stabilize herself. While she was assisted by her parents who moved in to help her, there were many who wanted her to fail. What added salt to the deep wound of losing her husband was her endless fight with the insurance claims company. Shockingly, she has still not received the money that her family rightfully deserved after losing their patriarch. Let's learn from this story of strength and resilience from this ever-smiling not just auntie who took charge of her life and made a success of it.
You're watching Not Just Auntie with Suman Adepalli.
Hi, Dr. Dhanashree.
Hi, Suman. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this show.
Thank you also for having me on this platform.
Well, your story is so inspiring. There was no way I would not cover it. In fact, I'll start from the very beginning. What inspired you to be a doctor? Was it parental pressure or you really had a passion to?
No, it was my passion. My parents never forced me. So, it is like you ask a child what you want to be, and every few months you will hear some different answer. And I think I have also gone through it. I wanted to become a lawyer, then a pilot. But by secondary school, I think by higher secondary school, I knew I wanted to become doctor. I remember I've written an essay which I had kept for a long time, and I had written in that I want to lessen the pain of those who are suffering. I want to make the whole world healthy. And a lot of things I had written. So since then, I knew I wanted to become doctor, and my parents wholeheartedly supported me.
Oh, that's fabulous. I think that's what it takes, right? Once the parents support, then the child can take off to the moon.
Yeah, surely. And to become doctor, I think you need that passion. Nobody can force you.
Yeah, and children, actually, I speak with experience because you're the pediatrician for my kids. That's how I know you. And that's also to tell the audience how we know each other. What inspired you to be a pediatrician?
I love being with kids. So there was no two way of finding any other branch after I was thinking about post-graduation. From the bottom of my heart, I love being with kids. So that's how I think, pediatrics was my branch. And I'm happy that I took it because the work is not work for me. I mean, I enjoy that, the time that I spend in my clinic or hospital, I enjoy it. I don't look at it as a burden or something, which I don't want to do it. I just wholeheartedly love doing.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of children come to your clinic and give these smart answers, and you're just laughing like you find it funny.
Yeah, really.
I'm thinking, kitna shara bacha, and you're laughing. So
No, I just love children. I think that's the best part of my profession.
Okay, all right. So, how did you meet your husband Rajesh? Since we generally see doctors getting married to doctors, and he was part of the Merchant Navy, I believe.
Yes, he was merchant navy engineer.
Okay. So, how did
So
your
it was, we met through matrimonial site of a newspaper, and it was a proper arranged marriage. We first met with families, and then we met each other a few times, and then we decided to get married. I think we were fascinated by each other's profession. I love that merchant navy thing. You know, you get to travel the whole world, you visit so many countries, so many places. Plus, you're paid very handsomely, you're respected on the ship, and it's a good life. I quite enjoyed it.
I think except the part that you have to be away from your family, it's a good life.
Yeah, but actually, I have spent a lot of time on ship with him, so I have enjoyed that life also.
Okay.
Before Harsh was born, and then when Harsh was 2 years old, also I have been with on the ship, and it's fun.
Okay. So I come to the next question, which is actually so you have gone through the most horrific incident of suddenly losing your husband in the accident. And if you could tell us more about it and how you picked up the threads of your life from this event.
So, as you know, I had a my second child was very young. She was hardly 1.5 years old, and after her birth, I reduced my working hours. I wanted to be with my kids, wanted to be there for them. So I was hardly earning. So when suddenly this happened, I was in deep shock, and suddenly like those two young kids that I had to bring up, and everything was like right in front of my eyes. I was really sad, and as the news was spreading, I think people were coming, meeting me. I was going through the same thing again and again, and getting more and more sad by the same thing. So but I was lucky to have one of my friends, Sanchita. She was my neighbor that time. I think that was a blessing. And she was the one, she was watching me, and she said, now it's enough. Now you have to like take hold of your life, start earning. Your children are looking at you. You can't be sad and sitting there. So I think she was the one. She literally pushed me to the clinic. She said, "You have to be in the clinic. You will get out of this sadness also, and plus you have to really earn to the level that you can run your house on that earning." And I think that was the best advice that I got at that time. And you can't believe, but on the fifth day ritual was over, and the next day I was in the clinic almost regularly, morning, evening. Then I started attending almost all the calls in the surrounding nursing homes, day, night, and my parents moved in. So that was again a blessing for my kids, because I think I was at least not worried about them. So then next few years, I think I just immerse myself in work, and at least don't keep your mind empty. That was the best thing, to start working and earning. And I think I settled down pretty fast. I mean, I was happy with the earning. I was able to run my house, my all my other responsibilities I could take care of. There were friends around, people who always supported me. I think my sister has been there for me at every stage of my life. She has been my strong support. And without her, I don't think I would have been able to do what I was able to do till now. She was there with me all throughout. She pulled me out when I was in despair, and she was there. I mean, she has her own issues, but she was also there for me. She's my older sister, and as a younger sister, she really supported me. Even now, she's always there. Like, I don't think she's another part, she's some another human being. She's like part of me, I feel. And I'm blessed to have her.
That's what sisters are for, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you are blessed indeed. So it's so nice to hear this. Actually, when something so extraordinary, I mean, so unbelievable happens, this it is said, right, in philosophy that whatever you lose comes back in another form.
Yeah. Very true, very true. Even a lot of my friends, I think they were sent to me only that time to, be there for me. Like I have a lot of friends which I missed out on naming them, but yeah, Ruta, Sangeeta, they were always there with me. And they entertained me, I think. That was the best part because that's what I needed, some unwinding and something that brings you out of that same thing, sad part that you're going through again and again. You enter your house and the same memories haunt you, but you need someone to do all that to make you cheerful. And I had those kind of positive people around me who
That's
believed in me, and they knew that I am able to do it. It's just that I need some push, and that's what they did.
that's really wonderful to hear.
And I always kept people who don't like me, they talk negative about me, I have always kept them away from me very respectfully. And then after a few years, I mean, I really worked hard for a few years, and after that my parents said that enough now. Every time you go out in the night, we are really worried and it's affecting our health now.
You mean to hospital rounds and all that?
Yes, the emergency calls and the deliveries that as a pediatrician I was attending. And then I reduced work to a little extent. I only continued going to the clinic. And that's how I think I could come out of that shock. So I think getting back to work was the easy way to come out of it.
Okay. Because I remember you saying that when I had reached out to you at this time, you said that had you called me 2 months ago, I wouldn't have even spoken to you. So
Yeah. I was avoiding talking on this topic. I mean, just work, and few people around me with whom I was just cocooned myself regarding the talking about the same thing. And yeah, every time it would bring tear, and every time I was so choked with the memories, and the time that I spent with him. The kids were young. Every time they would ask me where is father, you have to answer those questions. And plus show them that I am happy, I'm able to manage, so that you don't have to worry, your lifestyle is maintained, I'm there for you for everything. So yeah, even though on outer appearance I was trying to show that I'm doing it very easily, but it was a bit difficult. And someone like you, whom I would like to open up, but I didn't want to open up. Maybe something like that I spoke to you.
no,
that,
it's absolutely fine. I was in
yeah.
Pune at that time. I recall that.
Right.
And you said that you were not able to even believe the incident till you went to the side of
Yes, we actually the company arranged for us to go to the place, and we actually saw what happened. And only then it was, because he just left in the morning. It was just, he took the morning flight, and immediately at 4 o'clock we got the news. It was so unbelievable. I mean, at least we thought he would be in the hospital, so that we at least get to know what happened. And at least if that okay, he's serious or something is there, you get to talk. In the end, it was really shocking. It
you
was
didn't get a
so
chance to say
unbelievable.
goodbye. Yeah.
No, nothing. He just left in the morning, and that's it.
And where was he? As in, where did this happen?
No, he was a supervisor. So he had taken a shore job, as they say. That he wanted to spend time with family, so he didn't want to go on the ship anymore. So he had taken that shore job, and then the job involved going to the some ports, like there was Paradip port in Odisha. And so he went to Bhubaneswar that time in the morning, and he was to go to Paradip via that highway. So on the way at Cuttack, the accident happened. So he was supposed to take the audit of some ship, like the about the engine and everything, and that was there is a port where the audit happens, the structural audit and the machine audit. So his job involved giving all the inspection and whatever it needs to be done so that the ship is again commissioned
Okay.
for merchant use. So that was his job. So actually, he wanted to be. He left that shore job, the ship job, the sailing job. So he was out of it actually, and this happened. It was supposed to be a cool job with less risks, but even things have to happen. They just happen to.
I mean, it's really shocking, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, there is no word to explain. I think it is a big impact on everyone, even
Yes,
the family,
yes.
the children, and
Yes, children, the entire family. I think children are the ones who are greatly affected. And you don't even you don't give that importance to children when we are going through the same thing. We are in our own grief
yes,
and despair, and you don't even think that, okay, children, they don't even know what has happened. My younger one was just not aware what has happened, and suddenly why people are coming, meeting. I remember I had not even kept his photo for a few years till she grew, because I could not answer her question, where is he, and so I had not even kept his photo displayed on the wall or anything till she grew and till she knew what has happened.
and how have they taken it now? How are the children? They are.
I think yes, they are like, I tried my best. I tried everything to make them feel not special, not that they are in any special circumstances. Or I have tried to make them cheerful, and I don't think, like, of course they meet a father figure, but otherwise I tried my best to do. I remember my son, after some few years, when he was little older, he asked me something and I was like, no, I don't know. And he was so surprised. He said, my mother doesn't know. So that's why I realized that, okay, I can't give him a feeling that I know everything and I can do everything.
But that's a big
But I think I
compliment.
tried doing that. I tried in my quest to not make them feel some loss. I think I tried too much to make them feel that, okay, no, everything is normal. And I tried maintaining the same standard of living that would have been if he was there. I think that struggle was there, and I think now they've turned out to be cute children, responsible children. They like. I'm very happy the way they are, and
Yes, and everybody, those who know your family, we can vouch for it. They are very good and well-behaved children. So hats
yes.
off to you for that. I recall your husband being super supportive of your career. I remember when he used to come from ship, and all the children who were, kicking the injections, their vaccine injections, kicking it here and there, including my daughter. He used to come and help in holding them. Like, he used to phone, difficult
Yes,
child. So,
yeah. No, he was very supportive. I really missed him immediately after that. As I said, just immersing myself in work just helped me a lot. So now I can look at it as a third person and just feel sad about it. But that there was no time to think all that when I suddenly faced it.
to process it.
So I think actually you gave me a good chance to look back at my life and review. I think.
No, I remember this about him, and in fact, that's what got me to this question. That I think you had two loans. You had bought a house and a clinic when this happened, and you mentioned in the beginning that you had taken a step back from work. You able to settle this easily?
No. My practice picked up. I was very lucky, I think, and my practice picked up. And one more thing, it happened in 2009. And when there was influenza, sudden spurt of influenza cases in 2009, and I think that helped me to settle in my practice. As I said, I attended almost all calls in the surrounding nursing homes. That also helped, because then that spread the news that, okay, I'm also there as a pediatrician over here, and it all helped a lot.
Yes, I remember. I mean, you were a very, I would say, you're not a flamboyant doctor who talks about her credentials. Like, that's why I have actually introduced your credentials in the beginning of the interview. I remember I was going, being from South Bombay, I was going to a doctor there, and when I came to your clinic, there was nothing. You know, normally people display their certificates, and or there is in their prescription papers, it is that this so and so person is visiting doctor, consulting doctor at these hospitals. So I remember I was very shameless because I do my research. So I asked you, are you consulting in any other hospital, or do you have your own clinic? And I remember you were pretty laid back, and you're very okay with everything, that how much of a work I get is okay. So then to actually switch into this mode of someone who is
by the time I started my practice, I had been there and done that kind of thing. I had worked in many big hospitals, and I had worked with Dr. Pakul Parekh, who has a very flourishing hospital in Ghatkopar. And actually, in my presence, he opened a new, bigger intensive care hospital, NICU. So I worked there also with him. Also, I worked so much. I was so much into intensive care. I remember telling Rajesh in the initial days that I want to work. I'm like very interested in doing intensive care, and I was so passionate about my work. And suddenly, when I had my children, I had my family, I didn't know no more I wanted to work. I wanted to be my kids, and I was so different immediately having so it was like almost Rajesh pushed me, because he wanted to keep his word that, okay, I let you practice, so next it is up to you whether you want to now. So we opened that clinic, and I wanted to be with kids for a few years before I get into that. So I think, that was the time I was really not very keen on having I was not very aggressive in promoting myself and going for it.
No, but the word of mouth has worked, even though you are not aggressive, but the word of mouth is aggressive, because I think the parents have a sense, and I think both my kids have been with you from the time I've met you. So for their vaccinations and their routine work. So what I was trying to say is that this led to a change in the kind of person you were.
Yes.
Wanted to be.
The phase I was in, and then suddenly I was faced with such a great challenge. So I had to switch the role of from only a supporter to the provider of the family, and start earning at the same time, be with kids, be with in-laws, be with parents, and there was too much to do suddenly.
And I recall you mentioning that there were some people who wanted you to fail in spite of you going.
Of course, there was. Some people are ready to love you and care for you and help you only on some conditions. And if you don't want to behave the way they want you to behave, then they want you to fail and then say that, okay, see, I was telling you and you didn't do this, and so now you suffer. So something like that. And I was okay. I said, I have no time to look at these people like this. And I knew my motto, my goal. I was looking at my kids, and I think I just kept very respectfully, I kept them away from me, and that worked a lot. I think people who don't, you feel that they are in a position to help you. But many a times I feel now, I'm looking at that situation, that time I feel maybe such people are not capable of helping. They are insecure, or they are busy in their own issues.
They themselves need help.
They need, exactly. So, I mean, you should just think that they're not capable of helping them and helping you. And I think somebody who's struggling and who's actually acting doesn't need any help. You want people to just stand by you saying that, okay, you can do it. That's the only thing I feel.
Yes.
That whoever has been with me, I think that's the role they played in my struggle or my those days when it was difficult single-handedly to do everything.
But I really like your take on it that they are not helping because actually they can't help.
Exactly. Now, if I look at them, I feel I am in a position to help them now. And if they just even give me a little hint, I'm ready to help them. I have no problem. I have done that also. I've done for them. Those who did not work, did not help me. Those who didn't want me to succeed. I have helped them when it was their difficult time, and I have been there. And I think your approach should be like this.
Okay. Again, this is something you have shared with me. That what about the insurance? When something so shocking happens, and when you have small kids, you mentioned that you're still struggling.
Yes.
So could you tell?
Yeah, I think when this tragedy, something like this happens, a wife is suddenly faced with managing everything on all the fronts, and the kids are small. There are in-laws, there are parents, there is house to run, and most of them are like by the time there are children, I think most of the women are busy with their kids, not really earning much, and then suddenly she has to face a challenge, and then there is no time to give to children. She has to go out work, she has to suddenly take the role of provider, and so that is a time when actually children are also going through this tragedy. They need time. Already one parent is not there, the other person is not to be seen because she is busy working, she has to go out earn, and I think this is the time the compensation should reach the family, and the mother is not busy struggling to earn. So
Yeah, and
this compensation.
you could earn. You were an MD.
Yeah, exactly. I was well qualified. I had my own clinic. I had support system. My parents moved in with me. So for me, at least it was easy, but for other women, it may not be easy. And more than insurance companies, I think even the judges should take this into consideration, fast track these cases on priority basis. They should compensate the families when it is time, when it is right time, when the children are small. Getting the compensation 10, 15 years later has no, I mean, that time is wasted.
The critical
Yes.
period has passed.
The children, you never know, they have gone through insecurity, that psychological stress. It has long-term impacts on children.
And you still haven't got the insurance claim?
No. Now with this pandemic again, now there is a break. So.
And would you like to share the name of the company?
No, but I think it is more to do with the judges and the court. They can very well, if the court says they have to compensate. Okay. So I think it's our own judiciary system which should be blamed, not only the insurance company. Oriental Insurance was the one.
Okay.
So I think they're all hand in glove. I think like my lawyer, his lawyer, I think everybody is. I changed the lawyer also last few years because I was suspecting the same thing. I thought he is taking money from my lawyer, is also taking money from the insurance company or whatever. So I changed the lawyer now with the High Court. But now this case was, it just began coming for hearing, and then after for the lockdown again, it has gone. It's no more coming.
But by all means, this is such an urgent case. I know that
exactly.
in the pandemic, they are not addressing cases which are non-urgent, but I don't know what is more urgent than this. And in my account, I think it's already 12 years since this.
12. It's 12 years. Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, 2009. Yes.
I think this judiciary system, I don't know why people don't change it. They have Diwali holidays. They will have May holidays. Why do they need holidays? I mean, doctors are working. Every other professional is working. Why only judges need holidays? Why courts need holidays?
Yeah, or if you're taking your holidays, then just fast track the cases. I think what is urgent needs to be done. So this is a very strong message that we want to put out there, that what has happened. And again, to reiterate that you were well qualified, you were able to pick up
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
and move
Other
ahead.
women are really. I mean, my heart goes out to women who find themselves in such
A scenario.
Really, it's very difficult. They may not even have places where they can keep the children, and there are many times brother doesn't want to take responsibility, brother-in-law doesn't want to take responsibilities, and the wife finds herself in a very sad state.
Indeed sad. So I would like to move to the COVID theme of this interview. Since you, as a single parent, have been running your clinic, and I remember you did not shut down the clinic even in the first wave, wherein a lot of doctors had chosen to keep their clinics shut. And I just want to ask you that, as a single parent, how did you pull this off? Because I think you have an aging mother at home,
Yes.
and you have young children, so the risk factor was very high. And yes, especially since you were going daily, irrespective of PP kits, doctors have got infected. So
Yes.
how did you manage?
Yeah, it was a time of uncertainty and mass panic. So every fever, every cough was taken as a symptom of COVID, and patients were rightfully scared, I think. And I wanted to go calm their hysteria, but at the same time, I was worried. I was concerned for myself, my well-being of my family. But nevertheless, I went to the clinic every day. Whatever sterilization, sanitization, masking was possible to do, I was doing it. But as you said, in spite of that, there were many doctor colleagues who became positive of the virus. But I continued working, and then as the information was coming about how to save yourself, how to protect yourself, I was following the same thing. And I think I kept going. I have seen patients like non-COVID times. So I didn't change my examination things or not touching or anything. I continued the way I was practicing. Though I was little I tried managing not overcrowding the waiting area and giving appointments. I tried doing that.
Yes,
But
and you
of
kept
course
your
I
clinic
couldn't.
open, like you don't put on the AC. I've noticed that. And
Yes, exactly.
yeah, but how did
I
you keep
tried
yourself going? Like, I'm sure as a human, you must be having your own paranoia in terms of your children. I'm asking this question because doctors are just taken to be these, superhumans, and there is this expectation from them. So I just want to ask that, what does a doctor feel at a time like this?
No, during the first wave, when it was in the beginning, obviously, like everybody, even nobody had any idea how the virus is spreading, and everybody was trying, sterilizing every little thing. And I think I also did it many times. The moment I would enter the house, I would enter the bathroom right from the top to the toe. I have cleaned myself, whatever I was wearing, and everything I've sterilized for a few months, and no entry to anybody else and all that. And many times after the exposure, I have worn the mask 24 hours in the house, and I've whatever possible way I've kept away from my family members, my children, my mother. So I almost isolated after a couple of times of exposure that I was exposed. And so I think I've gone through it, but luckily,
With God's
you're
grace, touch wood. Touch wood. We are still in the threat of a third wave.
Yeah. I mean, with COVID, nothing you cannot
Predict.
boast of anything that okay, I have managed to be nothing like that. You can anytime catch the virus, I think. But yes, till now I'm okay. With the second, by the time the second wave came, I think that hysteria and that panic state had settled down, and I was more comfortable. And
So, how did you settle your panic? I mean, you must have felt it as a single parent. So, is there any faith or is there
no,
anything?
by second wave, I was vaccinated. I vaccinated my mother, and then it just gave a sense of some
Confidence.
confidence that okay, now is the possibility is little less, and I'm able to, maybe I'm naturally immune to the infection because I've had exposure multiple times, couple of times without mask also, from my colleagues only. So who turned out to be positive later, and I was like, I have chatted with them for 1 hour without mask, and next 2 days I get a news that oh, that one was positive, that turned positive. But I think that you keep facing it every day, and I think that just settles down. The panic state just settles down. I feel
Or maybe
that's what
antibodies, your
happens.
antibodies are 1500 or something.
I've never done it.
What do you do to stay relevant in the sense, there is these new viruses. I have seen you with books when I have come for consultation. So, do you keep studying to keep yourself relevant?
Yes, we have to keep studying. Like every few days, there is some new disease which comes, and you have to go through it. All these, when I was studying, there was a lot of malaria, and then when I started actually practicing on my own, suddenly there was no malaria, there was dengue, and though we had studied that, we had no practical experience of managing. So we have to go back, study, find this thing, exchange with each other, what is working, what is not. With COVID, actually it was totally new. So nobody knew how it is affecting, which organs it is affecting, what is the treatment. I think globally, as the world has come closer with all this, I think this really helped this time globally from all over the world. Doctors were sharing what is working, which medicine is working, which is not working, what is the pathophysiology, their own experiences. Based on that, I think every hospital made their own protocols. They were distributed to us. And now with the threat of third wave affecting children, even I have attended a lot of training, so-called, or the more and more information as to how these cases should be managed, how they should be, when they should be transferred, which will be the centers doing as tertiary care, and where should we send our patients. And that training has been done, and even BMC takes a lot of interest. This time, even BMC, while managing COVID cases, I think BMC doctors also played a very major role.
Phenomenal job. I mean, where would we be? The way, I think, yeah, as you said, in the first wave, even the doctors were baffled. But I think in the second wave, I know my own relatives of very aged people who have recovered because of excellent medical care.
Exactly.
So, I mean, hats off to the medical fraternity.
Yes. And initially, when we didn't have PPE kits and everything, and BMC doctors were running fever clinics, and they were actually telling us that don't see fever patients and expose yourself. Send all fever cases to our fever clinics, and protect yourself. It was among doctors also. I think it was very well managed. I mean, everybody was worried about the other one, and it was good experience. Like for doctors also, I think. I mean, in our area also, BMC doctors have really worked. They have been there for us. Where is the vaccination available? Where is where the beds are available? They were like just a phone call away, and they were responding to every call.
That's really fabulous. Very heartening to hear as a lay person. Yeah, so that brings me to the next question, that it has been very tough, being morning and evening in the clinic, dealing with your own paranoia, dealing with the lack of information, and then exchanging notes. So, as a doctor, what do you do to unwind at the end of such a day? Do you get time to unwind at all?
As I said, like being a pediatrician, being among children really helps. So with 101, 102 fever also, they are running around and it's fun to watch them. So that is apart. Then my own children, they're also active. And I have joined singing class now, which really takes me to another world. And you are just not worried about anything else and you only concentrate on sur and I think I'm looking forward to that musical journey. Next few years, I'm going to continue it.
And
Apart
is that,
from
is
that,
that
I take breaks.
Hindustani classical?
No, actually, it's a mixed light music with some rags she takes and then uh, normal songs.
Okay,
I
okay.
take breaks from my routine so that boredom is not there in the work. And so you feel refreshed. I feel, meet my friends also very often. I have my medical friends, non-medical friends. They keep me very entertained.
Okay. All right. One question which I missed asking you earlier was since you have a lot of standing to do in your clinic and you have never been overweight, you have always been very slim. So, does exercise, what do you do for fitness? Is the question.
I always watch my diet. I'm very particular of not having excess fat, any outside food. I hardly eat out. I
Okay.
make sure that I eat very balanced diet and 30 to 40 minutes of some physical activity daily that I do. It can be walking, jogging, or just at home, some yoga, aerobic exercises. So
Okay.
I spend time, at least about 40 minutes every day.
I find the most important part of this message is that if you, as a single parent, a doctor who's going to the clinic twice a day and taking care of her parent, is able to find the time to do this, I think it's very important for everyone to take out this time for themselves. So that's why I wanted to just push in this question. Now comes to the fun question, which I don't know if you like to answer, but because most women don't. So how old are you, Dr. Dhanashri?
I'm 49. I'm 49 years old.
Okay. And do you feel, I don't think this is true for doctors, but do you feel that age is a setback? I mean, or any kind of barrier in your profession right now?
No, as you said, as a doctor, I think as you age, it's an advantage
Old is
because
gold.
yes, because people feel more confident in you. Maybe I think I was more like my theoretical knowledge was more when I was immediately post MD, but it was difficult to convince parents that time. And now with all these years of experience, parents, whatever I say has more impact on parents immediately. Because they know I'm practicing for last 20, 22 years, and they have more trust in me. It's easy to convince them. It's easy to manage, and otherwise also I think at this age I'm more comfortable with myself. I know my limitations, I know my qualities, and I know where on which I can work. And I think this is a very comfortable age for every woman. I think by now your responsibilities are, at least you have done part of it. Your children have grown and you have little more time for
For yourself.
yourself,
Yes.
follow some hobbies. And I think I'm comfortable, happy telling that I'm my 49 years old.
Okay, this is just for to inspire other people, other women who are not just aunties. So, last question, which is that if you had any advice for women of like our age, I mean, women over 40 or even men, if you want. I mean, it's not compulsory, but since this channel is dedicated towards women, so is there any advice which you would like to give them?
Yes, I definitely want to tell every woman that at this age you should have your own earning, even if not independent, but have your own earning. Be physically fit. Make sure that you're physically fit. Spend some time towards it. And you should be, I think you should be emotionally tough. Somebody says something and you're crying, just get out of that, become emotionally tough. And just don't get bogged down by the societal norms that, okay, at this age, you are not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. Just do what you want to do, because as you know, you live only once. So this is the time you should learn whatever you left out on doing all these years. No, don't let any opportunities go by. Just do whatever you want to do. This is the right time. And don't have any guilty feeling that I'm doing this for myself. No, just love yourself, do it, because there's time for everything. And this is the time you should do what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think we have spent our whole life loving and caring for others. So there's
Exactly.
high time that we have to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
I mean, there should be a time for that too. Thank you so much, Dr. Dhanashree. It's been fantastic talking to you and for sharing your story more than the conversation. I think very important to share such stories because it kind of gives a path. It shows some direction to people who have suffered similarly or are suffering, and that was the main objective of speaking to you. So thank you so much for this, for your time.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, do you want to say something about fitness? Like, do you do anything for your fitness, or you just keep standing in your clinic?
You're watching Not Just Auntie with Suman Adepalli.